Right, we're about to start, so if you could settle down, that'd be lovely. Plenty of room at the front here if you want to come up. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A big warm welcome to you all. My name's James Brittain. I'm your chair for this session. I'm also very pleased to welcome our presenters. So we've got Paul, Jesse, Jeremy, and Martin. This is an ideas session. So there'll be an opportunity for anyone to contribute with thoughts and ideas after we hear from the speakers. Our focus is delivering energy efficiency through targeting behaviours. So this is something that I think we all need to know more about, and there's certainly a lot of good work going on at the moment. Before we start, we're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to try and warm things up. Now, you should all have a pair of red and green voting cards on or near your chair. Like these. If you can grab yours, that'd be great. So I'm going to start off with a vote, if I may. You may recognise this picture. It's quite an old one. The big question is, what's the problem? Surely it's a design problem. It's just not fit for purpose. The cart should have come with a much larger donkey. If you think it's a design problem, please grab your red voting card. Otherwise, do you think it's an operational problem? Surely the poor donkey and the design intent are being abused here by the operator. The car is simply overloaded. If you think it's an operational problem, grab your green voting card. So what I want to do is everyone to vote, so I'm going to force you to make a decision. So if you could all at the same time, so we can get a feel, raise your cards. Okay, so interestingly, probably about a 75% to 25% split, green to red. So I'm guessing we've probably got mostly designers in the audience for it to be an operational problem. For me, the actual problem here is probably an assumptions one and a communications one. So actually, depending on your perspective, it could be either or both. I'm an engineer, so to avoid problems like this, from a design perspective, we have to make big assumptions about operations, behaviours, and perceptions. And what we need to remember is that we are all human, we're all risk averse, so we naturally err on the side of caution. So what we do is we over-provide, or not really focus on exactly what the customer needs. So inevitably, we end up with the opposite of this, and inevitably, that brings in inefficiencies. So this is our starting point for today. What I'd like to do, very briefly if I may, is to propose a quick definition for energy efficiency and give a quick insight. In my mind, ultimate energy efficiency is about aligning these three perspectives, bringing together design and technology, operations and behaviours, all at the same time. So at its best, our ultimate energy efficiency is about being absolutely confident that our design, operational practices and behaviours are delivering best overall value at minimum consumption cost. Now, this session is focusing on larger organisations, and for me, one of the real problems with our organisations and companies in this country is that we tend to compartmentalise what we do. This may be quite controversial as a slide. These are some of the high priests that we tend to see within our companies. So these are gurus who specialise in their key aspects. They're all human, they're all risk averse, they err on the side of caution, so they naturally prioritise their own objectives. So we end up with a natural pull or disconnect across our 3 energy efficiency dimensions. And that in itself brings about what you might consider to be poor behaviours, significant amounts of avoidable energy waste within organisations, and inefficiency. So from my perspective, I think this is one of the challenges that we need to take on board. So I think this is going to be a very interesting session. We've got 4 speakers with quite different perspectives. So Martin is a developer, Jeremy is a comms specialist, Jesse, energy savings, and Paul is an operations director. I'll also very briefly mention that we're also very privileged to have 2 awards winners amongst our panel. So congratulations, guys, from the awards last night. So hopefully we're going to be in for a treat. The guys are going to kick off by playing our version of speed sharing. So they're going to take 5 to 7 minutes each, and then we're going to open up to the audience. So this will be your opportunity to contribute with any thoughts or ideas, or ask any direct questions to the panel as you wish. So I hope you enjoy the session. And first up, I'd like to introduce Martin Rayner from Heathrow Airport. I'm just going to actually mention just one thing. You might notice that a couple of the speakers are clients, and it's sort of worked out like that. There's no sort of intention of any cheap publicity or anything like that here, but I just want to declare that up front. Good luck.
Hi, good afternoon. As James said, I'm Martin Rayner. So, I work for Heathrow Airport, and I'm head of retail delivery for Terminal 2. So, Terminal 2, the Queen's Terminal. For those of you that are not aware, there was an old Terminal 2 at Heathrow that we demolished a few years ago, and we're building this fantastic new light and airy building, very similar to the latest terminal building, Terminal 5 at Heathrow. You can see on this slide the opening date and a number of the retail brands that are going to operate in Terminal 2. So Terminal 2 has been designed for the Star Alliance airlines, of which there are in the order of 25 today, but that number does go up and down as different airlines join the Star Alliance. So it's a £2.5 billion project, and we have 87 front-of-house retail shops. And of those 87, I've got 46 business partners to work with through development, design, and the build phase. And what I'd like to just talk to you a bit about today, really, is just one aspect of our sustainability agenda in terms of the energy assessment process that we've gone through on Terminal 2. So Heathrow, as lots of you may well be aware, has some fairly stringent targets on the whole sustainability agenda. So retail plays a key part in all of this. And obviously that dovetails into the overall objective for Heathrow. So in terms of energy assessment, we sat down with all of the design team and used a fairly simple spreadsheet to look at each and every component of their design that will use electrical power. And what we found was that we have the design team, we have the client side. So if we think about a food and beverage unit, the chefs often get involved with the kitchen design, and we found that there's lots of over provision, and James touched on this earlier. So a chef might say, I need the biggest dishwasher on the market because that's his preferred solution. But from an energy point of view, that may not be the best solution. And we found that that's a fairly typical example where, through the work that Discovery Mill have done with Heathrow, we've managed to collaboratively educate both our business partner, but also we've gone through that learning with them. So the dishwasher example, the big industrial conveyor belt type dishwasher, that might be the right solution when the restaurant is full up. But in off-peak times, and there are off-peak times in terms of airport operations, running a large dishwasher pulling tens of kilowatts of power might not be the right solution when there's just a few plates or cups going through it. So through an education piece, we got lots of the kitchen designers to think about maybe having 2 smaller units, and therefore obviously you might use both of them in peak time, but in off-peak time you'd only be using 1 dishwasher and therefore using less power. Fairly simple example, but actually they've been very successful in the overall driving down the use of power. So this is just an example here of where there was a target. We set a target of the 1337 kilowatt hours per metre squared per annum. And just through this general collaborative approach with, as I say, the designers, the chefs, and obviously the client team as well, just to sort of drive down the actual power usage. Now, James and my technical team obviously work closely at that level with the project teams. But what this has enabled me to do is to engage at director level with our business partners, because, to be quite candid, my view is that when you start talking in pounds, shillings and pence, that tends to get their attention, and that's what's helped me drive those conversations at those senior levels within all of our retail business partner world. And you can see the figures there, reducing from in the order of 112 down to £80,000 per annum from an operational cost point of view. Often our business partner commercial directors, etc., start to understand and want to learn more about this type of agenda. So again, in terms of performance checker, what we did is we needed a benchmark for Terminal 2, and as I mentioned, Terminal 5 is the latest new terminal asset at Heathrow, so we felt it was right and proper to use T5 as the benchmark. We went through a similar exercise when we built Terminal 5, but what James and the team did is rather than using the design data, we actually went and got the actual utility bills, and luckily all the energy meters are on a network, so it was quite readily, easily available information to retrieve. So using actual data, my business challenged me and my team to reduce power consumption by 10%, and we categorised that. So a fashion shop was compared by a fashion shop, and food and beverage, etc. So we categorised it to try and make it as real as possible. And as you can see, on average, on the slide there, you can see a 23% reduction, which is fantastic, and that's right at the top end of what we've achieved. But overall, we've actually achieved a 17% reduction based on our 10% target. So we're all really, really pleased. But it was a massive team effort, and the whole collaboration piece and getting everyone to work to the same agenda, both technically, sustainability-wise, and also from a cost perspective, it really has been a great team approach. And the other big benefit for Heathrow directly is that Heathrow has to provide all of the infrastructure that obviously, all the electrical infrastructure, for example, that actually the end user sucks power out of. So if they're using less power, that means Heathrow reduces the capital outlay of all of the infrastructure going forward. So that's what we've done to date. And again, with all of these things, we've all learnt quite a lot. And I've asked James and his team to look at this going forward. And hopefully we see this as trying to take it to the next level. So what we're looking to do here is, and again, I'm not a specialist in this area, so James will answer any difficult questions later, I'm sure, but is around putting sensors on all of the restaurants, for example, or office spaces, so that we can measure in real time all of the occupancy levels, and then start to mirror that against the actual power consumption usage. So hopefully, and back to my example with the dishwashers, in peak times, we, I guess, generally expect to see more power being used, and then off-peak times, we can actually track what the occupancy is in the food and beverage unit, and then hopefully we'll see that reduction operationally from a power consumption point of view. So thank you for your time. I'm now going to hand over to the next speaker. Thank you.
It's supposed to be on. He'll just don't press the brake.
Thank you very much, Martin. Next up, I'm very pleased to introduce Jeremy from Appetite. Jeremy is the first of two speakers who are going to talk about universities.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jeremy Duncan. I'm Marketing Director of Appetite. We're a brand consultancy, and we believe in what we call business made better. So that is transforming organisations by delivering sustainable futures. We've worked with many leading organisations to deliver sustainability communications and behaviour change campaigns. And these include people like Akzo Nobel, the Greater London Authority, Unilever and Suncor Energy in Canada. However, today I'm honoured to be here to talk about It All Adds Up. It's the campaign we created with the University of Leeds. The campaign has already won many awards and been widely recognised as an example of best practice. It was also, I'm glad to say, a winner at last night's awards. So working with a university provides many unique challenges for engagement, let alone empowerment. The University of Leeds is one of the world's leading centres for environmental impact and sustainability research, but it needed to make sure it got its own house in order. So what were those challenges? Well, although the university had made great strides with its BREEAM buildings and improving historic building stock, the HEFCE plans around higher education institutions identified a raft of additional measures to achieve their commitments. Within these, there was a strong recognition that behaviour change could play a major role. Energy bills alone were predicted to increase by £7 million a year by 2020, with the extra energy cost coming out of the overall budget. This actually means that teaching, learning and research funding would be significantly affected. The university developed a carbon management plan, as you'd expect, with the aim of a 35% reduction in emissions by 2020. That's actually 240,000 tonnes of CO2, with a cost saving of somewhere in the region of £17.9 million. So it really didn't take a scientist to figure out that a major change was actually needed here. We firstly needed to make both staff and students aware of the problem and the challenge the university had set itself. But engaging with a large, diverse and transient population at a university that's roughly the size of the city of Lancaster is no mean feat. We quickly saw the opportunity to go beyond the immediate goals and build a community of understanding around sustainability. From consultation with representatives across the university population, we created an overarching campaign. It all adds up, bringing together all the actions, big or small, across the community. So, the launch. This was based on the idea that the entire university population, that happens to be 40,647 measured on a single day, can act together to make a difference. We created an unmissable teaser campaign to provoke interest around campus, utilising unusual and sustainable materials and media. It All Adds Up consists of an overall campaign with a series of sub-themes, each with executions across conventional and intrusive media to build awareness. One sub-campaign focused specifically on heating, with a view of reducing temperature by just 1 degree. You can just imagine, though, the cost saving to be had by turning the heating down by 1 degree across the entire estate of approximately 100 buildings. A predominantly online campaign was created to encourage hibernation and shutdown of computers. The Christmas shutdown campaign actually encouraged academic staff to shut down their equipment over the holiday period. They weren't doing it before. This resulted in electricity savings of somewhere in the region of £29,000, and that's 217 tons of CO2 in just 11 days. And that actually represented, it was a good starting one, it was a quick win because it represented 33% of the annual cost-saving target. 80% of staff computers were switched off every night. Our campaign achieved a 95% uptake to save an additional 117 tons of CO2. A vital part of it all adds up is the online campaign to report progress, gather stories, that's personal stories, and encourage personal pledging, sharing success, building dialogue, and collecting content. The university's vision and strategy was based around positioning itself as a global leader in all aspects of climate change. The first phase of the campaign culminated in what we called an academic showcase. Now, this launched during International Climate Week. This was a poster campaign communicating high-level academic work. So that's all the complex research programs, but they were presented in bite-sized chunks for the general university audience. This clearly demonstrated the connection between what the university does academically and how it behaves as an institution. One of our key challenges was maintaining interest with 3/4 of our audience, whilst inspiring the new intake of freshers, and that was in excess of 10,000 students each year. So there was an evolution of the campaign. In its second phase, with the launch of hotspots, focusing on areas where small personal actions can have an immediate effect, identifying energy use at source, for instance, light switches and power points, and encouraging a change in behaviour. Traffic is driven to the website in order to pledge to specific energy-saving measures, demonstrating commitment at the very highest level. So let's look at the results. Firstly, willingness to take action to reduce energy consumption rose by 25% to 99%. In addition to this, our high visibility teaser campaign generated excellent coverage, including radio airtime, newspaper column inches, and most importantly, intense social media activity and dialogue. Energy savings, well, that actually equates to monetary saving of somewhere in the region of £242,000 to the university. And awards, this sort of recognition, going from a position of weakness as a university in 1 year, within the academic sector and beyond, gaining recognition, bringing community pride and giving the university the profile and status needed to pursue its vision of becoming a global top 50 university. So what did we learn? Firstly, the importance of strategic planning, coordination, not running campaigns in isolation. There's a lot of communications going out from the university. It needs to be coordinated very well. And the timing and modulation of the overall campaign with different themes running at different times of the academic year was very important. And also the importance of measurement and feedback. Creativity, surprise and delight in everything we did. That's in the range of design executions and also the range of media choices we used. Using humour actually works very well. Serious issues don't necessarily need to be communicated seriously. Preparation, being sure of facts and figures, ensure your calculations are better than the academics. It's a challenging culture. They challenged every figure we ever had. Being prepared to qualify any action taken and walking the talk. Disruption, to maximise the value by generating PR. Celebrating success at all times, feedback on overall success, and also specific stories. And through that, building a dialogue, engaging at every level, encouraging comment and feedback, and looking at those power of pledges, actually getting real commitment at all levels, and this being led by the top, very importantly. And then processes and actions, from steering groups to procurement and appraisals, creating a culture of personal accountability, embedding sustainability thinking into everyday actions, making it the new normal. All of these things can be done in isolation, but when done together, it all adds up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Okay, next we have Jessie from the National Union of Students. So students are obviously our future employees, so I think very useful perspective.
So I'm going to repeat some of what Jeremy said, but it's because I agree with him, which is good. Points. So yeah, my name's Jessie Schaff. I work for the National Union of Students. Talk a little bit about empowering students and staff at universities and beyond. Basically run through 2 or 3 of the schemes that we're involved in running, and hopefully some food for thought for everybody. So first of those schemes is called Student Switch Off. Essentially we go into universities and we set up a competition between the halls of residence to reduce their electricity use per person against a pre-intervention baseline. The hall that's the most successful at doing that, we give a reward to. So it's quite a simple, fun competition for students to get involved in. We give feedback on progress and their communal incentives. Those are 2 really, really important points. So just to take you through the pictures on the left, this is one of the photo competitions we run. It was on Valentine's Day this year at the University of Essex. It was called Love Your Lid. So putting a lid on your pan is one of the easy actions you can take if you're a student living in halls of residence. And it's one I strongly encourage you to all adopt, that behaviour. So we went around the halls with a lid and a rose, got some people to take some photos, put them on Facebook, get a couple of 100 likes for that easily, and give some Ben & Jerry's to the student that does the best. So it's a really fun, easy thing that you can do, really engaging for students. And the clue's in the name, really, Student Switch Off. It's a programme designed for students with sort of continuous feedback from what works well and what doesn't. So we work at around 50 universities running this and some private halls providers. There's over 150,000 residents living in the halls we work with this year, so we're reaching a lot of people. Over the past, with the churn of students coming in every year, we've worked with over 500,000 people over the last 5 years. Last year there was an average 6% saving in the halls of residence that we worked with, so some were a little bit lower, some were a little bit higher than that, saving thousands of tonnes of carbon. And over the last 7 years the campaign's been running, we've saved well over £1 million worth of electricity. So again, on Jeremy's point, that's money that's staying within the university sector that's being invested in improving accommodation, keeping rents down, and into teaching rather than disappearing into the pockets of energy companies. This is one project we run. Another one's called Blackout. It's developed by the University of Southampton, and it's essentially about getting students and staff together on a Friday, going out into the campus and switching stuff off. Just really getting out there and doing the physical work of switching things off to show people what can be done to cut energy wastage. So Jeremy mentioned some statistics from Leeds where they did a shutdown over Christmas. All sorts of statistics from the blackout. This is at Sheffield last year, just in one building. I'm told the light on was a rogue vending machine, but yeah, you can save a lot of money just by getting out there. And obviously you don't want to do that every week, but it's such fantastic communications to be able to show a picture like this to people around the organisation, come up with a nice infographic, and those savings will continue, and you're starting to raise awareness around the organisation. Also, very important for us, and I should say going back to Student Switch Off, is that we're all obviously committed to students and representing students and improving their opportunities. So we train students, we're always training students to be involved in these projects. We train ambassadors who are living in the halls to do peer-to-peer communication. Blackout is a volunteering opportunity for students as well. And moving on to our last slide, last project is Green Impact. So Green Impact, if I give you a very quick summary, it's a model we've developed that we adapt to different organisations to enable staff engagement while providing employability opportunities for students. We do that by developing a toolkit of actions for each organisation, and those organisations then go out and recruit teams who work towards bronze, silver, gold and excellence accreditation. So, for example, in a university you might have the geography department, the psychology department, the accounting, the HR department, all forming green teams, green impact teams, then working through our toolkit to achieve certain levels of accreditation. some examples of actions that they'll be taking: setting printers to duplex, creating a lighting and equipment responsibility plan, so there is someone shutting off the lights when they leave at the end of the day and at the end of the week, and also at the end before long holidays. And also going beyond that, so one of our key goals at the moment is to try and embed sustainability within curricula so that they can receive credit for that as part of the programme, and also getting staff onto professional CBD courses for sustainability. So really getting champions across the organisation, giving them the skills that they need and the framework that they need to drive change across the organisation. And I think Jeremy touched on it again. Universities, incredible organisations, very diverse, a lot of passion and enthusiasm there, but also very disparate, and there's all sorts of things going on. So a ground-up approach is very important. The top-down approach is also important to get top-down buy-in, but that's not always the best approach when you've got very independently minded academics within a university. What else do I want to say about Green Impact? So we get teams, they work towards accreditation, and then they're then audited. So we train staff and we train students and a few staff on an IEMA accredited course who go out and then verify the actions that have been taken by the teams. That's, as I mentioned, a very, very important part from us. We're giving students sustainability skills, increasing their sustainability literacy, increasing their employability. Once teams have been awarded various levels of accreditation, we hold a celebration event. We try and invite the Vice-Chancellor to give that top-down encouragement, and it's always a great part of the year for us to go around to all these celebration events, watch how, see the teams really enjoying the recognition they're getting, and the motivation that provides going into the next academic year is really, really important. Last year we worked with 60 universities and colleges, 105 student unions. We trained over 1,000 students on our IEMA accredited course to be auditors. There were 40,000 actions taken through the Green Impact Project. 30,000 of those we were told were taken as a direct result of the Green Impact Project. Anyone who takes part in Green Impact logs on to our online workbook and then ticks off the actions that they take. So we were able to collect a lot of data from the back end of that. It's very useful for informing, getting feedback and improving the project. So beyond universities, I seem to have clicked that. I've ruined the surprise there. Going beyond universities, does anyone here work at universities? One. Okay. So for those of you who don't work at universities, also very relevant. So we've taken the Green Impact model outside the university and college sector. We've just signed up the Natural History Museum. You might be familiar with the Blue Whale. It's my favourite room there. So we work with 110 off-campus organisations who run the Green Impact Project. We develop a bespoke workbook for them. Those include dentists all around the southwest region, NHS trusts, fire stations, also private sector, Ensley Insurance, and third sector organisations, the RSPB. Again, going back to the skills that we're giving students, the opportunities that we're providing for students, those organisations are audited by trained students from nearby universities. So it's a fantastic opportunity for the students to get out and gain more experience. It also adds capacity to the project for those off-campus organisations who might not be able to audit themselves. So something that our students and the off-campus organisations find very, very rewarding. Okay, running out of time, I'm going to go finally to my final slide, finish with a quote. So I'll read it out very, very quickly. It's worth noting that the destruction of the planet is not the work of ignorant people. Rather, it is largely the result of work by people with BAs, BScs, LLBs, MBAs, and PhDs. Education can equip people to be more effective vandals of the earth. I'll skip the last bit, because I'm out of time. Effectively, this is what drives what we do at NUS. We want to help people directly cut their energy use, but we also want to create a generation of graduates who have been to a university where sustainability is the norm, and they can go out into the world and turn this on its head and be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jesse. Okay, last but certainly not least, Paul Byatt from Amy.
Hello, so my name's Paul Byatt, Operations Director for Amy. I currently run a facilities business looking after over 2,000 sites in central London. And I guess like many, many businesses, everything that we do around energy is very much through the engineering aspect. And most of the stands I see here, it's all very much engineering, and it's engineering solutions. How do we do that? And that's how we were. We were making good inroads. Got a team of engineers, a team of project managers, and they were going out and doing a lot of work in the plant rooms. And they were doing various things that we didn't see, and great work, and we got awards for it. Well, I've got over 1,000 staff, non-engineering staff, that are in the buildings day in, day out, whether they be cleaners, whether they be chefs, whether they be gardeners, whether they be porters, receptionists, security officers. And I just want to know, how do I get them involved? How do I get them to start thinking about energy usage? How do I get them to start thinking about sustainability? Because they are the eyes and ears of our buildings. They're the people that are there at 5 o'clock in the morning cleaning it. They're the ones that are there in the middle of the night as security officers. So I had the thought thinking, well, we've all got smartphones. We all use apps every day now. It's just part of everything that we do in life. Maybe that's a fun way that I can get some of these people engaged into getting involved. Spoke to James. We'd met before at Heathrow, where I worked previously, and I said, can you help me? Let's see if we can do something and see if we can get something created to energise these people. So we held an event, and we basically got the team involved, and we educated them, because it's no good just sending people out to go out and find ideas without a little bit of education. Got them to share some ideas, got them to talk about what are the differences in the lighting, what does lighting mean. There's some obvious ones. We know things that, if the sun's shining and all the lights are on, yeah, that's obvious. If the window's open, the heating's on, that's obvious. But we needed to just give them a little bit more education to go out there and find things. At the same event, we used it to launch the app. So we created this app. It was a simple app that, as far as I'm concerned, anybody could use. Simple steps, 3-4 steps. You basically open up the app, you take a picture, you select whether it's heating, lighting or other, and you press send. Pretty much it. The GPS on the phone, we know which building of the 2,000 buildings, we know which building you're in because the GPS has located you, so we know where you are. It comes through to a website, and we can see who's logged it from their phone, what they think they found, and it's logged, and we can then track what's coming through. They can see whether other things have already been logged in that building as well, so they've got a bit of visibility to see whether that's already been logged in that building as well. But it's allowed us to start feeding back to them some positive as well. So we can start saying well done to them. We can reward them, those that come up with the good ideas. We can put a bit of competition in as well. So between the different teams that we've got in our different London boroughs, we've got a little bit of competition going between them to see who's coming up with the most ideas. So having done this event, we sent them off to say, okay, you know what to look for, you know how to use your phone, you know how to use the app, go do. But in going to do that, we tried to just give them a few things to help them. So a few little campaigns that we came up with. We had 3 to start with, 3 campaigns. So the first one was about lost. So this was about telling our team, see if you can go and find these things that we've lost. Is there heating that's lost heating on an empty building? Is it running longer than it needs to? So we used heating as our first lost example. And the idea is that we repeat this as we go through with different campaigns. So trying to say to the teams, the cleaners from here are a perfect example. They come in at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, when you walk in at 5 o'clock in the morning, is the building full on heat running? Is everything on? When you leave at night, is it still on running? Because we could be shutting that down. Are the windows open? Those type of things that we're asking them to go out and find. We're trying to get our team to really look for those ideas. We then did one called Found. So this is probably about us educating our client. This is about us going to our client saying, we found things, we found some opportunities for you here, we can help you with them, but we found these. And we use lighting as an example there. The different types of lighting, the controls of the lighting. People know about all these activities there, but we need to educate our client. And that was that campaign. And the last one was about missing. So we used equipment. So are we missing out on opportunities to make savings? We've already heard here about equipment being left on at night, computers being left on at night. We get into things, I don't know whether you have the same, but we find where there's shared kitchens, there might be 3 fridges in that kitchen because the different departments don't want to share the same fridge. Well, it's 3 fridges running in a very, very small kitchen area. So, there's opportunities here to go to the people who control the building and say, we could take 2 of those out and you can just tell your staff they're going to share a fridge and we can make savings here. So, you know, we are able to help them with some education. So, overall, it's been very successful. It's got the teams involved. For them, it's something that's very, very simple. You know, it's literally a few clicks on a phone. They all use their phones, whether it's on, you know, it works on all the different devices we've got. We've managed to get everybody to start using it. We're able to say thank you to all of them. Even if we don't use the idea, we're able to at least go back and say thank you for the idea, but, you know, we'll bear that in mind. I say the ones that have come up with some very good ideas, we're able to reward and say that. But I think overall it's got the whole team far more aware on energy usage, on sustainability. And what we've been able to do is educate them as well. And by doing education to them, they've been able to make some savings back at home, because they've started to understand the difference between the different types of lighting, what the impact on heating can be. And I think they've all probably made savings on their own energy bills, which is then a big, big plus to them. Because a few pounds to them ends up to being a few £100 by the end of the year. And if they're all making a couple of £100 saving by the end of the year, they're all very pleased employees. So we've been ticking this through, and then what we're going to do with James this year is go for another big launch again, because like all these things, they work, and then they need another lift, and another launch, and then another launch. So we're going for another big launch this year, again with it, and hopefully we'll drive another group of savings through on the team. So that's it. So just the use of an app has basically got 1,000 people engaged in finding energy opportunities. That was as quick as I could do it, James. All right.
Thank you very much, Paul. Okay, what I'd like to do now is to open up to Q&A, but also give you an opportunity to voice any ideas, contribute with any thoughts that you might have as well. Could I ask you to introduce yourself in the normal way by stating your name and your organisation, and I'll take one question or contribution at a time. Do we have anyone who would like to offer the first question? Okay, well, maybe it might be useful to gauge who we have in the audience, maybe just to kick things off. We had 2 or 3 people from universities. Can I ask, do we have many energy managers, environmental managers, and sustainability managers in the audience? If you are one of those, could you raise your hand? Okay, so we've got 4 or 5. Could I ask you guys, perhaps, whether you could share an insight on maybe the challenges you face trying to deliver behavioural change programmes? Would anyone be able to offer? Hayden will do. Fantastic. Thank you, Hayden.
The challenge I have when I'm managing a large estate is lots of different sites, little energy consumption across those sites.
Yeah.
So you can't invest it out. You've got to convince people to turn stuff off.
Yeah. And are there particular people that you need to engage and get on board to help you identify those opportunities?
Those that you can influence, yes. I mean, store managers are easily able to be influenced because you can motivate them. It's an invested interest. But the people very difficult to get on board are people like caretakers. They can be sometimes think you're a threat to them. You're making them look like they made a mistake for the last 20 years because you're asking them to save energy and they thought they knew more about it than you. Or directors who are concerned that saving energy will damage the business.
So can I ask, how do you go about, if you take caretakers,
well,
just very quickly?
You're the genius at that. With caretakers, it's about getting them on board, making them see the benefit for them.
Yeah.
You're not there to make them look like a fool, you're actually giving them a chance of boosting their career. So rather than taking the praise yourself, abdicate the praise to them so they feel that the ideas were them. In fact, you just planted them in their mind, really.
Developing their own skills, performance, very much a key theme that we heard across some of the speakers as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Perhaps I could bring in Paul very briefly. From your perspective as a director, operations director, would you, have a perspective on what you...
The caretaker one's an interesting one. So of our estate, we've got 120 schools. So we have caretakers in part of the estate as well. And actually, yes, making them feel like it's come up with their idea is a big one, but actually it's about education. They just don't understand the change, and we talk about lighting as a perfect example, what LED lighting could do. You know, they don't see it, they haven't had that education. They just, you know, they do their job day in, day out, and actually just by educating them, suddenly, pardon the pun, but it's a light bulb moment. It is that, yeah, I can do something here, and that's almost got them out and about to go and find more activity and find things for us, because they just weren't aware. They were just doing their job. So, and I think that's been generally the theme across all of the different personnel that we have in the team. They just weren't aware of what they could do and how they could do it. Yeah. And so the education is the big part that triggers the whole thing off.
And yeah, I think that's at all levels as well. Certainly we've found from the Leeds case that we had, I think it was the Department of Earth and Environment, and they're doing lots of they've got greenhouses and they're growing lots of plants and sort of testing things. Obviously we had to convince them it would work, but we changed all the sodium bulbs for LEDs. And not only did they see that there was a reduction in energy, but actually everything grew better. But that took years, and that's high-end academics being convinced.
Yeah. Go on, Jesse.
I would make a point about trying to get on board people that resist, and that's we call it behaviour change, and the word change, if you ask someone to change, you're implying that what they're doing at the moment is in some way wrong or bad. So you're kind of criticising them as a person implicitly when you're asking them to change, even if you're trying to be really positive. Even if you are being really positive and really selling it, implicit in asking someone to change is some criticism. So always to have that in your mind when you're approaching someone who might have worked in an institution for 20 or 30 years. So you can definitely win those people over by thinking about what motivates them, educating them, getting them to come forward with ideas. And I think the other thing is it's worth investing your time and effort in doing that, because those people often, when you do get them on board, they're the most passionate people. They know the organisation the best. They know where the skeletons are hidden in terms of energy saving. So it's definitely don't shy away from trying to tackle that problem.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thought, actually. Is change is your end result, isn't it? So, I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on this. Should you target the concept of behavioural change, as a key part of what you do, or should you just, aim for it to be your end result? Does anyone have any insights on that? Gentleman at the back, thank you.
Hi, Jerry Hughes from Auditel. We're a cost management group.
Hi, Jerry.
Yeah, I think quite a lot of this, as Jesse was saying, comes back to, particularly with students, they're the ambassadors for the future, and a lot of the things that we experience at home now, we're starting to do, and we can start to bring those practices into business. Yeah. One of the areas that we haven't, which is very prominent, I guess, at home, is that of waste. Yeah. Now, waste is something that we don't seem to have touched on here. We've touched on everything else, but some of the savings that you can make and will have to make in waste, otherwise you'll be punished as an organisation, you'll be fined. The cost of sending stuff to landfill that you can't anymore, you've got to have everything recycled, you've got to have everything economical. In student campuses and colleges and things like that, it's absolutely crucial. So in actual fact, what we should be doing more is looking to see what's happening at home, looking to see what's happening in the neighbourhoods, looking to see what's appearing on the curricula in schools and colleges, and feeding off those to put in new practices into business. I don't know what the panel think of that, but waste and water are two key areas that we haven't mentioned yet.
Yeah, and I agree. They're part of the sustainability, sort of trilemma. Martin, do you have a sort of angle on that with your overall retail hat on?
Yeah, for certain. Is that working here? For certain. So in terms of Terminal 2 and my activities, the retail activities, picking up on waste, to start with that, if I may. Looking in terms of recycling and Heathrow's overall target of ensuring we recycle as much as possible, I basically, about 3 years ago, came to the conclusion that I wouldn't really be able to monitor and manage if I allowed all of our retail fit-out business partners to do their own waste away. I couldn't go back into my business with any confidence and say, X percentage of waste was recycled. So what I did was I actually procured a company to do all of our waste management. So they provided all of the bins on the construction sites, and there was segregation at site level, and that was all taken away, and they did the overall piece for me, and that worked really well. And we've got statistics around 97% of recycled waste. So that was the approach we took on that. And secondly, in terms of picking up the water question from a design and construction point of view, part of the technical requirement for each retail fit out at Heathrow in Terminal 2, I engaged with the local water authority, and I have to say they are very proactive, and I basically got them to approve all of the retail water system design. And then we invite them along, and so my team basically facilitate, and they come on site, and so they signed off the design, and then they come to site to make sure that what the retailer's installed is in accordance with the design and all of that technical aspect. So that's how we've dealt with it. To be honest, I can't comment operationally on waste. So once the building opens on the 4th of June, so as the developer, I sort of hand the baton over to my operational colleagues, so I can't really offer any comment operationally.
Can I just ask, though, do you consider that, taking the issue away from them or making it easier for them? Have you...
So it certainly, because it's so important for Heathrow Airport, it did cost Heathrow Airport some money to do this, but it was the right decision for Heathrow Airport, with the whole sustainability agenda. So... but it certainly made it easy for them, because, to be frank, the fit-out contractor saved money because they didn't have to fund the waste away process.
So there was a win-win, another key thing. What about from a university perspective, either of you two speak of it?
Yeah, I think one thing is we are including waste in some of our programmes now, because we're seeing a demand from universities who want to address their waste management. It's something that gives me hope. I think it should give everyone hope that kind of believes in behaviour change and works in it, because it can be disheartening sometimes, come up against a lot of barriers. But if you just kind of cast your mind back to when no one recycled, and now certainly in my day-to-day interactions with students who have come through, have been, never can't imagine not recycling. They get to universities that don't have the greatest waste management systems, and they're incredibly frustrated that they can't recycle. I think there's a sort of new condition called recycling anxiety, when you've got a Coke can and you're walking down the street and you can't find a recycling bin for it. I suffer a little bit from that, but so there is a lot going on there as well in terms of behaviour change, and I think it's one of the success areas that we've had, not personally, but as a country perhaps.
Yeah, it's key to integrate them, I think. How about anyone else? Any other questions for the panel? Contributions, ideas, perspectives, challenges? Maybe I'll ask a quick question to... Oh, John, were you... Sorry.
John Mulholland Energy Solutions. If you had £20 million to spend on changing behaviour, what would you do with it?
Good question. Who would like to take that one first?
Good question. It's a very good question. I think it's a combination of, and I think I was picking up a little bit on that last question as well. So for me, I've talked a lot about education, and I think education is a big part of it. But actually, interesting enough, the last two bits, I think I'd actually engineer out the water usage. So I think it's a combination of so, you talk about the water usage. For me, that's one that you engineer the solution out, so you're just not using it. Same with the waste management. We provide the recycle bins, we provide the facilities, so we effectively engineered that out. So we can engineer those solutions out, but I think there's lots of others where it really is about that education and that awareness. And, I still see it. The session that James ran where he held up and showed them and said, do you understand at home how much this light bulb uses and how much this one uses? And just to see their faces, it was that wow moment for most of them. And if we could just run program after program and educate, But the problem with all these, I think you have to do it again and again and again, because you hit that brilliant, I'm going to do something about it, and they get back into their day job and it tails away and again, and it's that. I think it's a refresher to do it. And so I actually think the majority of it, and it wouldn't be anywhere near that amount of money, I'd spend most of mine on training and educating.
So 1,000 employees, I was trying to do the maths, 20 million quid, 1,000 employees, that's a nice nice budget. Anyone else like to try their hand at that?
No, I'd just second what you just said, Paul, because I think it all is in, and I would say this, you would think, in communication, but I think it's making it relevant, making it personal, but making people aware and knowledgeable, but making it relevant to their day lives. I mean, we were talking earlier actually about the way we behave at home is actually a lot better than when we're in work, in many ways in what we do, and making people get those connections. And in my world around communication and brand, it is very much about making personal connections, being very, very relevant. And then what you do, you've got to inspire people to make changes. And if you inspire them, you'll save loads of your money because they'll be doing it for you. What we saw with Leeds as one example is people coming back time and time again with ideas, and it paid back so quickly. So I think it's all to do with that.
What about you, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you could spend on. I don't think it would go very far on sort of capital projects, so I'll go for a shameless plug for some of our work that I think for 20 million quid we could easily reach every university student living in halls in the UK, probably across Europe as well, and a significant part of Europe. So we work with over 500,000 people. Now we've been running it 6 or 7 years. Sometimes I talk to people 5-6 years ago went to university who remember our project from when they lived in halls. And it's also an important part of our work it's called the change disconnect. I'm not going to be able to get the words out, but it's about reaching people in a time of change as well, which first year university students are absolutely perfect target for that, taking on all sorts of new habits, some good, some bad. So getting to people at that stage. Obviously, university students are a good target, but I think we could, for 20 million quid, we could reach everybody in the country with a really good education programme. Something really engaging, exciting, motivating for them.
So yeah, I think a key theme coming out there: training, skills development, performance improvement. You know, the what's in it for them. Maybe I have time for a quick question, if I may. Go on, Andy.
Yeah. Paul. Sorry, it's more for Martin and Paul. Sort of live in the real world. It's over education and reward. So, of your £20 million or whatever the budget was, how much of that would influence people more on reward than the education? Because you both mentioned sort of.
Yeah. I mean, you think maybe the education won't, as I say, until they got that wow moment, because actually what they realised on what the training session we did is actually I can go home and save money on my own energy bill. That was the reward they got out of it, that I can go home and do this. Now, so that was that initial, I got something out of it, and they went away very, very energised from that session. But that's where I said it then tails away, because once they've done that at home, the incentive's gone, and that's where probably the bit you're alluding to is now we probably now to reward them for finding those items at work. So they've done it at home. Now we've got to reward them for finding those opportunities at work, and we do. I mean, we do reward them. We do have a reward scheme where we can financially reward them for finding those opportunities. So how much of that between that pot, I wouldn't like to say, but you know, we do certainly financially reward for good ideas.
And that's similar for Heathrow, really, because again it's so high on the Heathrow strategy and that agenda, which is driven from exec down. Again, all of my team, as with all other members at Heathrow, employed members at Heathrow, everyone has personal objectives. So all of those, it's all defined, and there is a financial reward associated with that's paid on an annual basis.
I think that's it's about keeping the momentum up as well, isn't it? And that's almost another huge area to discuss. It's time to draw the session to a close. I'm very tempted to do a final vote here. A couple of themes have come out of this. So we've been talking about sort of behavioural people solutions, and we've had at least 2 responses about designing things out is the best approach to some of this. I wonder, if I may, if we can find our cards again with maybe a final vote. How important, or would you say that behavioural people issues have an important role to play in delivering energy efficiency and overcoming some of these perspective issues that we've talked about? If your answer is a straight yes, hold up the green card. If you think that actually it's better to design out the people factor, put in controls, tamper-proof systems and the like, maybe we'll try the red card. Do you want to, again, I will force people to vote either way. So if you could hold up your cards. Okay, so interestingly, it's probably about the same again, 75-25. So in a true sort of apprentice style, I think we can firmly say we've been hired. I think, yeah, on conclusion, I'm personally very encouraged. I think lots of key themes are coming up time and time again, which basically means people are having the same successes, which is fantastic. But I always do think, there's no magic wand here. It is hard work. Jesse was talking about 20,000 actions. That's amazing. And, but I think if you can get the right formula for your organisation, there are really deep cuts you can make in consumption and cost. So that finally leaves a big thank you to our speakers and to all of you for your contributions. I hope you found the session useful and maybe have taken away a few ideas to implement for the future. If I can ask you to show your appreciation in the usual way, much appreciated.